let's go ahead and start with introductions, I think. But maybe we can start with you guys so we can make sure everybody's mics work okay. So how about you, Jennifer?
Hi.
Why don't you tell us, here's what we'll do.
Okay.
Hold that.
We've got a couple of them with their mics muted also.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a little prompt. Some people have already started a little bit of introductions. Here we go. Tell us something about yourself, something interesting maybe about your graduate program, or if you do deal with the real world, which I know many of us don't, what might be going on out there. All I can tell you is that I watch a lot of BoJack Horseman. So anybody knows that, and it's very important. So Jennifer, what about you?
Yes, I am interested in this article that we read by Hankins because I do teach first and second year dual credit to high school students. So I enjoyed this talking about Thomas More because we do Utopia in my class. So I liked reading this article because it really brought, new perspective into my mind about when I'm teaching, that what Moore's goal kind of was with that. So I'm in the world, the real world with high school kids. So it's kind of scary.
Real world.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So who else do I have? It's Greg? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Can y'all hear me?
Okay, Greg. Yes, we can.
All right.
So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Greg Bauer. I'm the superintendent over at Como-Picton CISD, which is east of Sulphur Springs, just a little ways, if you guys don't know where that is. And this is I guess I had class last night, so this is my second class here for the master's program. And I'm excited to be in class, ready to learn. Good to see everybody here tonight. So I don't know what else to introduce.
That's good. We'll learn more as we go. Thanks, Greg. Okay, who's next? You jump in, anybody? Abigail. Okay.
My name is Abigail Mosley. I'm in my third semester of my doctoral program, so I'm just excited to rock and roll right now.
All right, wonderful. Who else?
I'm Katie G, and I am in my first semester of my master's program.
Welcome.
And my real life thing that's happening is that our dog had puppies a couple weeks ago, and so my microphone is not on mute. It's just a bunch of little squeals in the background.
Hey, Katie. It's Dr. Stewart.
Good
to actually meet you.
Yay! Live. Okay. Who else?
I will.
All
Hello.
right, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Landaverde. I'm in the PhD program, and I am trying to get my coursework finished up, hopefully this summer. I teach at a 2-year school, and that is very real life for me most days.
Yeah. Yep. Wonderful. Okay, who else? Who's last?
Hey, I'm Lonnie. Hi, Dr. Stewart. Hi, Dr. Carter.
Hi, Lonnie. How are you doing?
Hello.
I got the name of that book for you.
Oh, yes? Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're wonderful. I'm so glad to see you both. And Sarah, hey, over in Arkansas, how you doing? I am hopefully going to finish my coursework in May Mini or Summer 1, depends on what's offered, and then start the dissertation process. And I can come some Thursday nights, but I couldn't make it tonight. So I think this is great that y'all are doing this. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, how about our people?
And I have to mute y'all too because it's not dogs in the background, but my kids sound like them. So mind you too.
We would be trying to parse that out. Human canine. Okay, I know Joyce is out there in the real world.
Joyce Sample. I don't know. I don't know.
senior. But I'm also trying to finish up. Hi, Lottie. My PhD coursework, summer, maybe fall, and then dissertation time.
I just realized I took your class last semester.
Did you? Nice semester. In person, like actually.
And Marie,
Just the name on the computer.
Yeah, right.
introduce yourself.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm Marie. This is my second semester in the master's program. I am formally English right now, but I'm thinking of jumping ship to the linguistics side. And I see Dr. Stewart just shaking her head.
We'll put her back.
La 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 la. But I'll be the GA. I'll be recording and editing and uploading it for all the online folks. So
Wonderful.
I look forward to the discussion and learning too.
Excellent. Thanks. How about you?
My name's Charlie. I'm the IT guy for the night shift. I'm the only guy on campus right now from 5 to 10. So
Very important.
if I ever show up late for something, it's because I'm, supposed to be on 2 different sides of the campus at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm on my sophomore year for my bachelor's, going for a doctorate eventually in psychology. I want to study like the connection between schizophrenia and depersonalization and memory loss, that kind of area. But yeah,
Okay.
you'll see me every day.
Well, welcome. Welcome. How about you, Brian?
Brian McShane, second semester PhD program. Currently no interest in going over to this dark side I keep hearing about. 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure what it means to make Dr. Stewart very angry. So I don't want to make her very angry because I advertised yesterday. I don't have any real life. Real world
Well,
things.
right, but you already said where you're in the doctoral program, second semester, and Daniel is too.
Yeah.
And you just came from, no, I'm not just, but you spent some time in Ireland,
I
yeah?
did, yeah. So I'm Daniel Jones, and this is also my second semester in the PhD program. I came from, I was in Ireland for about 6 days and Scotland for a day, so that was fun. My focus, I want to focus on Irish literature and maybe connections between Japanese and Irish literature, so it was great to actually get to go there and kind of experience the culture a little bit. So.
We compared notes too. I had been to Europe in May, and we both went to grocery stores. I went to one outside Paris, and you went to one outside Dublin.
Yes.
And we went to a section called Tex-Mex that exists in these grocery stores in these small towns. Guess what's there? Old El Paso products only.
Who knew?
Who knew?
I had Mexican food at a Mexican cantina at a gas station in Ireland. Because there's nothing else to eat.
So many layers.
Probably served by Germans.
And Dr. Stewart?
Oh, some of you know me already. Hi, everybody that I know already. And Sarah, it's nice that you don't have to come in from Arkansas, yeah?
Welcome.
Because she
Yes.
came in, you came in and you came with another person, right? In the summer, and then you would stay the night or something, or did
Yes.
you do it all?
I've done a little bit of everything. In the summer, I've came and stayed a while, and in the fall, I've driven out for 1 day a week classes. So it's online classes when I can. Yeah, it's been a little bit of everything.
Well, this might be a nice break for you.
Yes,
Glad you're
yes,
here.
for sure.
So I'm Susan Stewart, and I'm director of the master's program. So any of you who have questions about the master's program, then that would not be anybody except Greg, and he's already in mine, and Catherine, and we'll be talking. And is anybody else there in the master's, or is it all doctoral? Is that Jennifer Mims?
Yes.
Are you, Jennifer, are you? Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, and I'm teaching 599 this semester in this class on the day before Shannon does. And it's been a real experience learning this whole process, and I'm really glad I participated in it. And we plan to do this more frequently as we're trying to set up one of the rooms in Talbot Hall, formerly Hall of Languages, to have cameras and have this kind of interaction with everybody. So cool, Bill, for us.
I was very glad to get it to crash last night's class. I learned so much. I also learned what happens when things fall apart. And Brian said, "Do not touch the computer." So apparently, that's when everything goes offline.
Oh, and I went for a horseback ride today.
Oh, there we go.
I needed some horse therapy.
Oh, good old horse therapy. All right, let's introduce ourselves to Josh. He's in his third semester or second. He's unsure. Does summer count as a semester when you're counting for something like this? It definitely felt like it when I was doing it. He graduated with his MA from here in the spring, and he started teaching English in the fall. He was a GA here. He's working on American Lit of the South in his PhD program, but that's about as specific as I've got. I'm interested in how place, community is used in Southern literature. I think we can do that. So there's plenty of really interesting stuff in digital humanities for that. He also has a wife and boys who are teenagers, and he tries to avoid the real world, but he is, because he might be tempted to comment, plus I would rather take my time to read a book I've been wanting to rather than engage in Twitter war. Unless a Twitter war is about a book I've been reading, I'm okay with that. He's excited and he's anxious. A few of you guys are too. Katie's already introduced herself. Peter, he just joined. Katie's part of that too. Katie, can you tell us a little bit about the DISD program that's going on?
I'm not actually part of that.
Oh, you're not? Okay. Okay.
She's applied for the
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thanks. I do teach high
Okay.
school, but we're not part of DISD.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, welcome. Well, Peter is, and he's working on dual credit. And Sarah has introduced herself. Stephanie, third semester here, and she was burned out, but she came back. She's taken 2 classes, of which I honestly have no experience. So needless to say, I'm intimidated but excited. Look forward to meeting everyone.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, Stephanie. All right. So I'm going to just show you the syllabus and it exists. And then I want to talk to you guys about what digital humanities are. I want to show you some things that are pretty cool and fun. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit about what the digital humanities are. But before I say a damn thing, I want to show you a digital humanities project that I think you will find delightful. It'll wet your whistle. You'll want more and more. It's called How to Rob a Bank. So the digital humanities are not just digital stuff. It's got to be about the humanities or it's not the digital humanities. And what are the humanities about except for humans, the human condition, our relationship with the world, our relationship with one another, our place in the world. So what we're doing, what Hankins talked about, and then also bank robbery. So take a look at this and let's talk a little bit about it. See what you learn. Oh, turn my sound on. Okay. How to rob a bank. All right. How to be single, how to tie a tie, how to boil hard eggs, how to boil eggs, how to get away with murder, how to rob an ATM, how to rob a drug dealer book, how to rob 50 Cent, how to rob somebody, how to rob a car, how to rob a bank, how to rob DCA. This is a search. This is what's happening in real time. 10 tips for robbing a bank from a retired bank robber. Thinking about robbing a bank? Read this first from Time magazine. He chooses to look at the article from Sabotage Times, an ex-armed robber on how to successfully rob a bank. Clay Turney took to Reddit for an AMA this week, all these references to various social media, and now the internet knows how to steal millions. His article continues, no gun, no threats, no Hollywood drama, no mask disguise, nothing. Just be a regular customer in and out at the same amount of time as making a deposit. First, stand in line like a regular customer. Second, wait for the next available teller. Third, hand him an envelope and tell him to give you their 50s and 100s. Usually this is written on an envelope rather than verbally stated. It's very specific. Then turn around and walk out like a regular customer. That's it. No glamour, no team of criminal masterminds. Just stroll into the bank and ask for the right notes. All right, so now what? He has to, he's gonna find water pistol, because he's not gonna really do it. He's got a cowboy guns for a wild vest, a Glock that's a poster. eBay is where we go. So he chooses, for $7.25, he's gonna buy it now, a pistol that looks a little bit like a gun. He's gonna get it overnight because he has to rob it now. And while he's at it, he's gonna get a police scanner. App store. So how do humans interact in the world? We can interact with technology. Okay, so around me, what's around me? I need a bank to rob. So what am I going to pick? First, Nigeria, Citizens Bank. Citizens seems pretty good. So where is that? Okay, now I've got my Google map. Figure that out. Okay, I'm going to text my friend Elizabeth. Are you there? It's 5:30 p.m. Please note. Okay, while I wait, I'll play a little bit of a game. All this takes place on my phone. How much money does Bill Gates have? How much money does Hugh Dudek make? How much money does the president? How much do I need to retire at 55 to 40 and so forth? Apparently he doesn't have enough to retire. He's going to need $700,000 according to it. Test WWE internet test your IQ, test morality. Moral foundation, your personality, your moral sense. He's going to decide, how do you decide between what's right and wrong? Remember, I'm thinking about the bank here. First, tell us a little bit about yourself. We don't know a lot about him. You know, he's 20, he's male, and he's got some college. Think of a ladder as representing where people stand in the United States. The top of the ladder are the people who have the most money, most education, and most respected jobs. At the bottom are people who have the least, like you, buddy, least education and least respected job. He practices, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He's got 11%, and that becomes important. He's still working on. He's not very religious, so that's important. His politics describe himself as kind of middle of the road. His economic issues, he's about middle of the road. Oh, his battery's going low, so he's going to disappear for a little bit. But it's midnight now, and he's checking on Elizabeth again. If I do it, I guess they talked about robbing the bank. Okay, so Elizabeth's mad at me, so I'm going to go to Amazon. I think I'll get her some, okay, so now it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I think he's going to map where it is. What's the weather like? I guess it's pretty nice tomorrow. So it seems like 75 is a good day to rob banks. 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, now I think he's calling Elizabeth. 3 o'clock in the morning. And he hangs up. I'm going to play this game alone because I don't quite know whether I'm going to do this or not. Okay, now we're going there. He says, bank robber, on my way. Let the games begin. Uh-oh, police department. Getting closer, warmer. The bank is getting closer. On your mark, get set, go. And she says, don't ever talk to me again. And he says, emoji bank, emoji gun, emoji exclamation mark. And that is at 9:30 morning, the next morning. I'm gonna listen to
Silent alarm, Citizens Bank.
What to do in Buffalo, New York, like he's a tourist. What to do when you're bored in Toronto. What to do when robberies go wrong. Maybe robberies go wrong, because he's not quite sure how it's gonna go. Fast way to write a will. So how to write your own will and testament. We got a WikiHow, a Women's Day article, a Bestopedia. He's gonna go with WikiHow. That's appropriate. Deciding how you'll write your will. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. He's been there at the corner for an hour. How to take a screenshot of blood pressure, a screenshot on a Mac, a good selfie. Take off fake nails, a hostage in a hotline, Bank Miami. How do I take a hostage? He's gonna try a Wikipedia article. It finds out what a hostage is first, a person or an entity which is held by one of two belligerent parties to another, or sees the security to the carrying out of. Okay, I'm gonna take the moral test again. How do you decide between right and wrong? See how that goes. Okay, let's see. I need a pickup on the other side of it. That yellow cab. He's going to pick me up at the back door. Where's the back door? Oh, boy. Okay. It's 10 o'clock. It's a little after. Okay, I'm going to wait a while. I'm not sure if I'm this or not. Okay, how to stop a female. Cat from spraying, dog from bleeding, female stalker, cat from feeding, dog from lactating. I'm going to go for, he wants to know how to handle a chronic complainer. His female complainer, I guess, is going to take a female hostage. Yes, how to stop a female hostage from, how to deal with chronic complainers. Seriously, mean, Jeff, definition, strange. Seriously, in Spanish. I don't know why these things come up this way. Seriously, how do you stop a hostage from complaining? claiming. Restitution, we're going to go there now. The restoration of something lost or stolen to its proper owner. Recompense for any injury lost. Okay, we can tell where he's going on this parole line, right? Definition of love, easy going, easy credit, easy peasy. Sure. Come, easy go. Okay, we're going with that. Idioms, that we get some help there. Cliche, so to explain the loss of something that required only a small amount of effort to acquire in the first place. Well, Buddy's still worried about retirement. Okay, so where's he now? How to pay off the victim of a crime, rob a bank, take a hostage, pre-sequel, and tight. Was cut to that was the first line. How to release a single bowling ball, come on, mixtape, stuck seatbelt, how to release a hostage. Okay, so he's, I'm not sure I'm gonna do it. Let's see what time it is. He's gonna check the,
Bank hostage found. Locating
he's been here
suspect.
3 hours now, still trying to decide this. Okay, he's gonna call his girlfriend again. No, I'm not. Okay, I think I'm gonna take a bus. One way, Mexico City. I'm gonna go ahead and confirm that. Yep. I'm paying for that. Economy, no frills. Gotta get out of here. Okay, so we don't know what it does. Okay, so what was that story, and why the hell did he choose it to tell it that way? What did we get out of that storytelling mechanism that we didn't get before we were told straight?
Digital evidence for the trial.
Okay.
I think you also just see his thought process instead of him like saying what he's did. You're like watching him think it through. Like, okay, well, if this happens, then what do I do? Or how do I write a will if this doesn't work out? Or like it just walks you through his like thoughts that maybe you don't tell people that you thought about.
Yes, absolutely. And we see just his screen. Anybody see that movie Searching?
Yes.
Wasn't that amazing? I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It takes place entirely through social media. Yeah, just the screen is like we see. It's the guy loses his daughter.
Parts of it, substantial chunks of it.
Is there anything that's not?
Yeah, when no, there was a camera. Yeah, there's elements of it.
Yeah, I think it's just his screen. So.
Well, there's they go places. He confronts his brother. But while he's doing that, there's no laptop or anything. But there are cameras that he put there. So there's elements of surveillance in every.
It's all surveillance, right? And he's using surveillance to figure out what the hell happened to his daughter and so on. Anyway, it's fascinating because you're just looking at it through the social media. Same way we just watched this guy go through this weird experience with his phone. It's all on his phone. His games on his phone. His eBay's on his phone, and so forth. So what else about this? What stuck out for you guys about his story? What do we know about this guy? Other than the fact that he tried to rob a bank.
He's got ADD.
Okay.
He also seems desperate. Like he needs to do it right now. Like, well, tomorrow's a good day to rob a bank. Like, and how much? But then again, he says, well, how much do I need to retire? So maybe he's losing his job. I don't know.
Yeah. What do you say, Lonnie?
Sorry. I was just thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking.
Oh, I can tell.
All the predictions that would pop up when he would start to type in what he was searching for, I think says something about our society. Like I tried to type in how to use Kool-Aid to dye my kid's hair one time, and what popped up was how to use Kool-Aid, and then it was like to cut crack cocaine or something like that. You know, the predictive text kind of tell us something about, you know, the Googlers and what it is that's getting looked up the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of this is social media, so I love that. What does it tell us, not just about him, but like of humanity? I don't know what's up with this. What'd you notice, Joyce?
It's kind of impulsive. I mean,
Let's
do it tomorrow. It's 9 o'clock, and then going back to this other lady. And
impulsive, but also incredibly reluctant. I mean, what is really compelling him? Elizabeth? I mean, what's her role in this? I guess they talked about robbing a bank, and he says, "I'm gonna."
super serious, and he's looking at water guns. It's not.
And he's learning how to do it on WikiHow. And why did he choose a female to? He hasn't even been in the bank. I don't know. Maybe he saw somebody go in there. Take that hostage.
This is not going to work out very well.
And what about the moral compass? Do you think he has one? I mean, what's going on with the morality test? Huh?
You take a quiz to find out if you're. Oh, like take the quiz. Yeah, took it twice.
And he's like, okay, and he took it when he was at home the night before, and he took it again in front of the bank. So what can we, I'll ask you, anybody up there, what are we to make of the fact that he was so reluctant? How do we know he's reluctant? I mean, I'm just making an assumption here based on the evidence for the trial.
It seems like he's second guessing himself. I mean, he goes back and forth and visits the same things over and over, but then he jumps to play his game for a little bit. So maybe it's not super serious, but I don't know.
And that's his risk. He's like, uh-oh, there's the police over
here. Yeah, so why? I mean,
consider the risk of it.
Right. And then we start to, I mean, the other layer of this, the thing that really makes it a humanities project is because, you know, the risk and reward factor more broadly, right? Why do we do what's right? Why do we do what's wrong? Is it because we're afraid of getting in trouble because we've got the police scanner there that we're trying to find a way around it, and there's the police station. Or do we do what we do because we want others to be pleased with us? Poor Elizabeth, I don't think she cares that much about him. I don't know if they had a one-nighter. They talked about robbing a bank. He says, we're going to talk about doing this. I'm really going to do this. You know, they laugh about it, and he goes and he does it. Calls her at 2 a.m, hangs up on her a bunch of times. Okay, so is he without morality? What do you think?
No.
Okay, why do we say no? Why do we say no, Daniel?
This is kind of a back and forth. I think it seems like a struggle, and he seems like he wants to justify it by taking that morality test. Well, I don't have morality or high morality standards, so maybe I can justify these actions. Like, no, wait a minute, maybe it's wrong. So it's just a back and forth. So.
And the way that the creators have framed it, we're not supposed to take that morality test seriously at all. I mean, it's like there's people at the top of the ladder. So how are they rating this? Another question becomes, you know, how does morality happen? Where does it come from? Is impulsive isn't entirely impulsive, is it? I mean, and how it's mediated. I mean, this guy has, as Greg said, ADD. He's got impulses, but he's not a sociopath, and he's scared, and he knows repercussions, and then he hasn't even robbed the bank, and he's going to the Greyhound bus. Do you think he's going to rob it? What do you guys think? You know, Jennifer, you don't think he's going to rob it? Why not?
I don't. I think he's just bored, and I think that the whole thing seems like a metaphor for our culture, how, you know, we have everything so, you know, easily at our fingertips and we want it immediately, but you can go back and forth from something so serious as robbing a bank to playing a game, you know, and it's just such a, like I said, metaphor for our culture right now, it seems like to me. I don't think he's going to rob it.
Anybody, what else do you guys, who thinks he's going to rob it? I'm kind of with you, Brian. Why do you say that?
Well, because he knows he's going to, in all likelihood, he's going to the order of it, right? He was going to leave a will because he's going to get shot. To mitigate that, he needed a hostage. He probably took a female thinking it might play better if he had a female hostage.
So he's thinking about the trial.
He's going to get caught because why in God's name are you going to take a bus from Buffalo, New York to Mexico? Pull the bus over.
It's going to take so many days. There's the guy. Go stop it. It takes him a day and a half to get down New York.
I read into the
Okay.
hostage piece of it. I read into the hostage piece of it where he was going to release a hostage. Where maybe he was thinking how to do that. Or that might have gone into the morality piece of it.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, he's trying to figure out how to release the hostage, so he doesn't want any ill will toward him. That's just what popped in my head.
Right, he has a fake gun, and he's maybe doing this to impress a girl, and yeah, he just wants to be, but he doesn't want her to complain a lot when he just.
That's right.
So I mean, there's not altruism over there. He's just like, I'm just gonna take her. And also, it says a little bit about his own sexism, right? I'm gonna get a whiny woman.
Yeah.
Like first I thought, but maybe it's like you keep ignoring me. This is what I'm gonna do. I don't know.
I wondered if maybe she was part of his moral compass, like you were talking about, what's your yardstick? What are you using to determine what's moral for you or what's immoral? And so he's got this quiz, and then he's texting her and asking her. And so, I feel like maybe those were his two maybe go-tos, like if she would confirm to him, yeah, go and do this, or I think, what did she say? Leave me alone, or never text me again, or something. I don't know if she was like, if he was some type of approval from her.
She's the only other tangible character we have in this story. So yeah. What's that?
It could be her bank. She could be the potential hostage. She is the only other female character. So any she could be her in that.
Leave me alone. Leave my bank alone. Quite a story. We have no idea.
We're done with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be when we're done with it. All right. So there's a little bit about digital humanities. I'm going to show you another one that is a map of Islamophobia and various incidents over time, and it maps both time and space. But let's wait on that until I show you the syllabus here, which I said we're just going to look at it, and then later on we're going to talk about the assignments, because the assignments are going to make a lot more sense, I think, once we have sort of an overview of what the hell this thing is that we're doing here. So, Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer, 1815 to 1852, poet Lord Byron's daughter. She says the analytical engine weaves algebraic patterns just as the jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves, 1843. Here's a little bit about her. And I'm going to refer a lot to things that seem to be far removed from the digital realm. I mean, this is she's not talking about a computer in 1843, but she sort of is. She definitely is. She's seen as the first computer programmer. But to do that, we have to think about like the music box in terms of a computer programmer. The cylinder that plays a predetermined song along a sequence of these raised times. They run over these bumps when the box is wound. Somebody programmed that box to play that one song when somebody winds it up. Or a piano player, that's a program as well. That's a computer program. It's in each case, it's a machine that is programmed to respond to and enact with another machine to make something else that's predetermined to happen. So a player piano, the music is programmed through a series, in this case, a series of holes punched into a scroll. I don't know if everybody's familiar with how a player piano works. I just know it from Westworld.
See, I do want to say something. You got to say stuff in my class.
Yes, please do.
This is exactly what was happening when on the little video that you had.
Oh,
because you thought of something, and what did you do? You popped over to the internet, because right now our brains kind of. I've always thought this. I didn't know I thought it until I understood how the internet works, but our brains are hyperlinks.
I like that.
And the web allows us to enact those hyperlinks, whereas we wouldn't have gotten to do that before.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about it. I'm going between two screens. I got ADD, that's damn sure. Yes, please speak up. So we've got, this little rolly thing, and it's got holes in it, and those holes go on in tines, and and then they twist, and then they tell which key to do what thing. So that's the pre-programmed song. Or even like, think about even further back, like a loom it's programmed to manufacture textiles in a predetermined pattern. It's predetermined ahead of time. So if we think about those things, like machines that we program to interact with other machines in predetermined ways, and then I start to make a little bit more sense. Ada Lovelace, the only legitimate child of Bella Milbank and Lord Byron, weird family. Her mother had mathematical training. I mean, that's crazy at the time, right? Byron called her the Princess of Pythagoreans or something like that. And he said that Ada needed to be tutored privately with mathematics, which was very uncommon, right? So she met this guy who had created this machine that's well regarded as being the first computer. They call it the Babbage machine. They don't know how much she had in, she co-authored this book with him. We don't know how much involved on that side she was, but she definitely did the programming part of it. So she met him when she was 17, and he showed her this engine that he was working on her. And so she stayed with mathematics though for a while, and she got married, and then she got a chance to go back to it. And so in 1843, that's when we get this loom quote. She published a translation from French of an article on that analytical engine, that computer. And to that, she added a bunch of extensive notes, and those extensive notes are the things that we say help us understand her as being like the patron saint of computer programming. She first published a description of a stepwise sequence of operations for solving certain mathematical problems. She was, they say, a visionary that she said it's not just numbers, that the engine has to act upon things besides numbers. The engine might compose elaborate scientific pieces of music or any other degree of complexity. So she's taking the machine and she's applying it, the human creation of art, and she's enabling a machine to do it, not just like in the way that we do play or piano or the way we do music box, but like actually create something out of a complex series of algorithms. So she took it from a calculator to actual computation, and that's where the actual power is, the prophet of the computer age. So before I get to the assignments, what the hell is the digital humanities? That's a question we will keep asking ourselves the whole semester. Everything you read is going to ask the same thing. But all I think we need to keep in mind is that we're talking about the humanities, and we're talking about, as I'll explain, sciences and technology. We're talking about the smashy part between the two. And I could give crap about the sciences, but I want to know what the sciences can do for the humanities, and that's what the digital humanities is about. And a lot of times, as computer scientists collaborating with humanities scholars and humanities teachers, artists, but sometimes it's, I have this thing like I had an issue that I wanted to solve that I couldn't solve through linear means that had to do with archival materials, and I saw a thing that did a thing that I thought was pretty cool, that I thought would solve the thing that I wanted to do. So I said to our instructional technology folks, do you think that it was an open source thing? Do you think we can make that thing do this thing? And they said, well, I don't know. And we tried for a grant, and I got a manuscript, and I'll show you the thing that we built. But basically, I work from the assumption that I want to know what the digital can do for me, specifically as a teacher, as a scholar. Digital humanities is without a doubt one of the hottest themes out there. It absolutely is. It's changing so fast, and it has been for a long time. And we've been through a couple of rounds of it, but it's just there's a lot of stuff happening. But I want us to think about, some people do think of themselves with, I'm a digital humanities person, 100%, that's what I do all the time. And then a lot of us use it as a tool to get other things done. So through our books, we're going to look at what the digital humanities can do for us in English studies. So I'm in rhetoric and composition, for example, and as I said, I found it really helpful for my archival work in rhetoric of social justice across the 20th century. I'm looking at it on this campus and in this area. So it helps us provide some new frameworks, new perspectives, new mechanisms for understanding the humanities, but we have to think about the digital in some radically different ways. Just being online is not digital humanities. So that line between what's but something that is digital. I mean, so he took the creator. I don't know. They took digital stuff and used digital tools to create another product that forced us to think about humans in different ways. So machines reworked material to help us see ourselves in new ways. Screenshots. It's just screenshots. So basically what I want you guys to get out of this class is I want you to get a deeper, maybe more forceful, if you don't already have it, understanding of the humanities, and then also see what's out there. What are people doing with the digital stuff that forces us to see things in new ways? And one of those new ways is this. Oh wait, I've got to go back to that. I'll come back to the new ways. That's very cool. Okay, now my ADD is kicking in. Here's the agenda. This is what we're going to do, and I'm going to stick to it. We're going to talk about that mapping Islamophobia thing. And then we're going to go back and talk about the humanities and why the humanities matter, and arguments that have been made for why the humanities matter. I mean, it's always crisis time. Humanities is in crisis. It's always been in crisis. And so it's always like, oh, we have to defend ourselves against the sciences, you know, and we do. We've always had to. But there are some different ways about going about it, and I'll talk about those. We'll talk about especially that tension between the science versus the humanities, especially starting around World War II, when tons of government funding went into that, and according to a lot of people, gutted the humanities. But we'll look at arguments that are being made now about the humanities, like why be an English major? Why does that do anything? We've made a lot of economic arguments about that, but I want to lean more heavily on the idea that the sciences have, and science is all of it, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, all of those have a lot to help us understand about the humanities, and not just, you know, not humanities as a subject necessarily, but like humans like us. I mean, what the hell's more important than us? Me. And then we're going to look at, we just talked about hypertext. This was an interesting MIT project about learning poetry at MIT in 1974, using these crazy clunky machines where you would touch a line of a poem, and then what happens? It pulls up other information about that line, about that poem, and so forth. He goes, the same guy who got this grant, it was in collaboration with this computer science guy, went for more money from NEH, and NEH said, well, I mean, hypertext was interesting for this project, but I don't think it's going to work. It's beyond that project. I can't imagine. And then if we have time, we'll look at remixing real text as my project. Go ahead, please.
I don't think you need me at all.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yes. I want to actually stay, but then I want to dominate the conversation.
Oh, I wish you would.
So, so I know better. All right.
Thanks, Susan, for coming and for your help.
Have fun all.
Okay, so we have a bunch of texts, but a lot of them we're reading together, meaning that we're going to present chapters to one another from several things. We're going to do that for, well, here's a breakdown. The Emergence of the Digital Humanities, we'll start that in a couple of weeks. And it's a smallish volume, but it's dense. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Reading machines is also really thin, but I want us to read graphs, maps, and trees first. Both of these are about literary analysis and the digital humanities. And of course, because texts are text, I also see myself in literary analysis as well. I'm teaching women writers right now. I think all of those things are part of English studies that matters. But the reading machines is really tough to get into, but it's really important. It does get us there. This book, Graphs, Maps, and Trees, Abstract Models for Literary History, got a ton of response. It's sort of a groundbreaking book. And one of those things that emerged from it was a bunch of critical responses to these. And so a couple of books that you're going to be looking at are largely collected from blogs because the conversation moves so fast. A lot of people started blogging in response to this reading, this Graphs, Maps, and Trees book. So this one's available for free. And that's one of the ones we're going to read together. So after we read a little bit from Graphs, Maps, and Trees, then you guys are going to present to us some of the critical articles in that they're short in response to that book. Later in the semester, we're going to look at new digital worlds, post-colonial humanities and theory, praxis, and pedagogy. Digital humanities is like so white and so male, like the humanities in general, you know, historically is very homogenous. And so she takes them to tasks in some interesting ways, you know, the colonizing of the world, you know, pushing back the post-colonial, coming back from Franz Fanon's work on Black Marxism. And then doing digital humanities is a very applied book. You guys are going to be, I'll tell you what you're going to do in your final project in a minute, but you're going to read the introduction for next time, and we'll talk about that. Actually, not face-to-face. I have a wedding, so next week we'll meet all online, but after that we'll have this option throughout. But I thought this was a good time. I mean, not because I didn't decide that Anna would get married this weekend or the next weekend, but it is convenient because it's a chance for you guys to sort of set up the class. You've got a blog to set up and some stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. But you're going to present to one another the digital humanities book, doing digital humanities. And then there are two rhetoric and composition books specific. And again, I think all of these are English studies. They all have something to teach all of us. I really don't see the divide between literature and composition. It's arbitrary and silly. So we'll read one that's rhetoric and digital humanities. It looks at a lot of projects like some archival projects to capture the written language of the Cherokee, which really didn't have a written language. It was established after. But it's disappearing. So how to save that? And then debates in the digital humanities is another one that is made up of a lot of blog posts that has become a recurring book that gets redone and redone from the University of Minnesota. It's free as well. This is one we're going to read together. So we'll read debates in the digital humanities together. We're going to read reading, maps, graphs, and trees, critical responses to Franco Moriarty. And we'll also read doing digital humanities together. And the rest of them we'll read separately and then come back and talk about. And then I included two books, one for Brian and his sci-fi.
This one.
There you go. Okay. We're going to need you in this conversation. What the hell is Neuromancer about?
Neuromancer is it's a story of a character named Case who is a thief, but he only steals things from cyberspace, which is interesting because this book was was published in '84.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've seen The Matrix, that's a wholesale theft of this book.
Mm-hmm.
Blade Runner is the story of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, but the aesthetic, the way that world looks, totally stolen from Neuromancer.
Huh.
That sort of Japanese influence on like West Coast America,
Yeah.
That's this book. Cyberpunk as a genre was there's debate, right? Neil Stephenson, right? There's debate about who was first, but this is the Cyberpunk Bible for all intents and purposes.
I didn't even know there was controversy about that.
It depends how far into it you want to get. But.
Apparently just at the doorway. My boy Gibson.
Oh, they still argue with that. No, I mean, I agree. I won't have that argument. I'm not going to start that here.
Okay, so I put it as a recommended text. I recommend it. Don't you think, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I put it on there. I wish that we could fit it into the rest of the schedule, but I put it there specifically because emerging digital humanities, the emergence of the digital humanities, uses the hell out of it. He uses he troubles reality in the ways that Gibson does. So for next time, for example, as I said, we won't. Well, I've got a couple of discussion questions that some of you have already hit for week 2 instead of meeting face to face. And one of those is to prepare us to talk about Neuromancer. Excuse me, for the emergence of the digital humanities through Neuromancer. William Gibson's seminal novel Neuromancer. Real major touchstone for Jones's book. A lot of his chapter titles come from that. And really knowing something about Neuromancer is going to help you quite a bit in understanding the emergence of the digital humanities. So if you want a good sci-fi read that. If not, there's a workaround. I've got you can find a lot about Gibson online. One really helpful piece is this Guardian article on the 30th anniversary of this book. So he talks about like its relevance today and so forth. And I want you to think about questions about the difference between real and digital spaces. I mean, Brian just said he just steals from cyberspace. Where is the digital? Where is the real? And where is the line? And what does he do to reveal it with that? And what is cyberpunk? And what does any of this have to do with digital humanities? And one thing that's making me think of responding to this question through is something like the bank robbery thing that, he's there with the phone. Which part of that was the real? Where was that line between him and the thing he was doing and who he was? I mean, where is his morality? Is it, contained within his skin, or is it, part of the, where are the lines? So those, and then I'm going to talk about today this other book called Two Cultures in a Scientific Revolution. It was written in 1956, and it's about this major disconnect between science and the humanities. He's a scientist, so he sort of rags on the humanities about being lightweights, but he still says we should talk together. So anyway, that I'll talk about that too. So we have like the split between reality and the material in the cyber and wherever that line is, and then this arbitrary split between the sciences and the humanities. And so I'll talk a lot about the science and the humanities a lot, especially the post-war era, and coming forward in some of the arguments that we make in defense of the humanities. And as Hankin says, how not to defend the humanities. Let's see. And I normally won't talk at you this much, but I've got a lot of stuff to throw at your way. Okay. Let's see. So, any questions thus far? Okay, so I'm going to go through some assignments. The first thing is we're being recorded. So, hello to everybody from the past who's watching this recording in the future, yeah? Hello. Everybody in the past who's watching this recording in the future, since they're not able to participate in this conversation in real time, I'm asking them to do a couple of things. And by them, I mean you, if you're listening. It's weird to have this conversation. It's so meta. I'm going to explode. So synchronous, meaning like in real time, all of us here right now in this room, brick and mortar, or virtually streaming in, you prepare for class like you do any graduate seminar. You read the stuff, and then you come in and you have conversations, and then you go away and you read some more and so forth. In order to participate in the class, I'm asking for those who can't be here, and I know that everybody can't be here in real time, send me beforehand written response, or first, well, let's see here it is. It's the breakdown. Okay, yeah. So the difference between the two classes is, one, you guys are going to be here live, and those who don't, you guys are going to submit a 400-word response to the recording of the class meeting. So you're going to watch this and then respond to it. And then before that, send me something that I can bring into the class about kind of a discussion starter. So dual modality means in this class, I don't care which section you're enrolled in. If you're if you're in the dual modality class section or the online section, it doesn't matter. What I just learned while working with Susan is I had no idea that the online section is a totally different D2L shell from those who are enrolled in the face-to-face part. So I thought you guys were going to talk, but you can't. So I've got a solution. We're going to work around it with the blog. But for this, for participating in class conversations, we've got the platform. And okay, so here we go. If you can't attend, before each class meeting, give us some questions to explore together, thoughts you have about upcoming discussions you'd likely contribute were you able to attend real time. I think it's important for everybody to have multiple opportunities to contribute to our class discussion as directly as possible. So that will feed into what we are getting ready to talk about, whatever your assigned readings are for that coming week. And then after each week, post a 400-word response to the class. And some guidelines for that, pick a couple of things to talk about from Thursday's class meeting that you'd like to bring up and talk about more thoroughly. For example, maybe you want to talk about robbing a bank and you need some tips. But I mean, like, think as Trump would say, bigly about this. This is kind of summation of your smart thoughts in response to not just the readings, but what you're hearing in conversation here amongst all of us. So the kinds of things that what I'm asking you guys to do, I don't know Marie, how quickly will the recording be available?
No later than 11 a.m.
Oh, that fast. Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So those of you guys who are listening to this in the future, soon I'll post that. You guys will all have access to this. I'll put it in both classes. There's a section called recorded class meetings. Let me put it so that it looks like it does to you guys. We should do that.
And I don't know if, I'm sure it's been explained, but like I will send you the link so that you can then.
Excellent. Yeah. No, but I thought maybe that's how it worked. So, so those of you guys who are listening to this in the future, I will drop this link after Marie sends it to me here in the week 1 discussion. So have that available there. And then in this discussion area, post your 400-word response. You can post that to your blog, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you do post it to your blog so that everybody else can see it who's not in this section, put a link here so that I can read that. Oh, we've got some thoughts before class. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at these and feed them in. But yes, check out Peter and Stephanie's posts. So post in response, and then that's the participation part. The other part of the participation is made up of blogging and commenting. So I've asked several of you guys have already created blogs. How many of you guys already have a blog? Do you guys have blogs? Blogs. Oh, you do, Lonnie? Yeah. What do you use it for?
Sorry, I had to create it for I think it was an L2 writing class with Dr. Chung maybe. I would have to kind of play around with the passwords for a minute. I mean, I haven't used it in maybe 2 years, but it is there somewhere.
Okay. Well, and make a new one if you'd rather. But if you have one that you already like, go ahead and use that. But I recommend WordPress. It's easy and here's your friend, if you don't already know about this friend of yours. Whoops. Where's the Google thing? Video tutorial. Oops, yeah, this keyboard. I'm such a Mac user. Tutorial on WordPress. And there we go. How to use WordPress. but it is pretty easy, and it's free. So you just sign up, and then and you can easily post. I won't sign up, but play with it. And all I'm asking you guys to do, and this is part of what I'm asking you guys to do next week, is to, we've got a blogging thing right there. There's a thing right here that says publish your blog. So if you have already done that, create your blog, and then you're going to put it on your Search Hero group library, which I will talk about in a second. I'll show you examples of. And then I want you to respond to a reading. This is for next week, and we'll go over what's next week next time. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so blog. You're going to blog bi-weekly blog, and that would be if you do put, for example, your response to the class lecture in your blog, and that would be in addition to your bi-weekly blogging. So your bi-weekly blogging would be about what we're reading, what we're talking about, what you're finding out there in the world, just I want you to have, keep up with regular social media presence, and this is like an old version of social media, but oldie but a goodie. And then I also want you guys to respond to one another. So bi-weekly, and then respond weekly to one another. So those are two ways to participate: blogging, and then face-to-face, and then our attempt to replicate the face-to-face in our online course shell in D2L. Okay, several of you guys have signed up for your presentations already. I just put, you're going to be presenting to us about a digital humanities project you find out there. So you already found one on Dubliners. I have set up a schedule based on those who've already signed up. This is right here in the announcements. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I'm asking you guys to give me your top choices for when you want to present. Some of those choices have been taken, but I'll give you your first or second or third choice. Everybody who's already filled out got your first choice except for one person, and that person didn't get their first or their second choice. But I filled those in. We've got first one coming up, Jennifer, on the 5th week, week 5. Thanks for getting us started.
Great.
And then we've got Katie, and then Stephanie, and Jesse, and Abigail on the 8th, Savannah on the 9th, and Sarah on the 10th, Josh on the 11th, and then so if you fill that out, let me know what your preferences are, and I'll add those to the schedule so you'll have those as soon as possible. What you're doing is just finding a digital humanities site that's interesting, and then you're presenting it to us. And so those of you guys who are here it'll make sense how to present to us. You just present it to us. But those of you guys who are from a distance, it's just a 5 to 10 minute presentation. Tell us what the project's about. What does it do that can't be done with traditional alphabetic text or other linear means? Why is it a digital humanities project? I mean, can this thing be done without digital humanities? And then also, what makes it important to teachers, to researchers, to you in your own teaching and research? And you should also demonstrate the project, which I'm going to do with mapping and Islamophobia in a second. Practice it so your presentation is crisp. I mean, you guys are going to see with mapping Islamophobia, I'm going to stumble around. And so if you can do yours crisper than that, that'd be great. But you don't have to. Those of you guys who are, Marie, what would you recommend about these guys presenting a digital project to us? They'd have to do a screencast or something, yeah. Because there's no real, you'd have to hold your laptop up to us, right? Yeah, okay.
Well, I know Dr. Stewart said last night with the ones that are streaming in that they could put together a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, and I'll click for you. That's good. Or a Prezi or whatever it is that you want me to do. And then you can tell me when I'm demonstrating. Go over there, go over there. So those of you guys who are here live, just present it to us. Tell us what it's about, and you could just you don't have to do a PowerPoint. You can just post the link, and then and I'll put it up, and you can kind of talk us through, and I can fumble around with it. Those of you guys who can't be here live, virtually or face to face, do your presentation in some tool like Screencast. Screencast will just record the screen exactly as you have it and your voiceover. So the stuff that I'm saying, and we'll see your cursor move and so forth. So since you're going to be demonstrating the Digital Humanities Project, we'll be able to see you interacting with this and telling us what you're doing. So Screencast is a free. Yeah, basically you hit the button and you're going to be able to record whatever's on your screen, and it's easy. It's easy. It does it automatically. You just turn it on and you frame the thing that you want to record, and you speak into the computer, and it records until you tell it to stop recording. And then it'll give you an opportunity to upload it to YouTube, and you just give us that link, and then I'll play it in class, or other people will be able to get a chance to look at it elsewhere. But I want you guys to present it to us somehow. Okay. And rhetorical praise, Joyce. All right, so this is the way we're going to go about sharing chapters with one another. And it's also going to be the way you go about summarizing other pieces. We're going to be crowdsourcing a lot of material, digital humanities projects that you see out there in the world, and the chapters in our books that we're not reading all of them together, that you guys are presenting to one of to all of us, which I'll explain in just a second. But there's this really helpful tool. Do you guys, anybody but Joyce, know about the rhetorical praise? You're gonna love this. You teachers are gonna love this, yeah?
Yes. Best thing ever.
Okay. So, well, first I'll tell you about the groups. It's a 5-sentence thing, and then I'm gonna want you to to present it to us in class, live, if you're here, and then via a little blurb of text, which we'll talk about in a second, and or a little audio or a video clip like Screencast. So digital humanities is so expansive and grows and grows and grows. So we're kind of crowdsourcing some stuff. It's got 2 parts: the rhetorical précis itself, and which let me show you this bad boy. Okay. So it's a really useful way to get your students to think about not just what the author is saying, but how they're saying it and why it matters. And also for whom the piece is. So the name of the author, the genre, the title, the date, a rhetorically active verb, and then a that clause, the major assertion. And then there's a second sentence that explores how the author develops and supports that thesis. And then a third sentence about the author's apparent purpose, followed by an in order to phrase. And then a description of the intended audience and or the relationship the author establishes with the audience, which will be, a lot of this stuff will be scholarly, but a lot of it is also, as I said, blogs, and some of it may have snarky tones because they came off, there are blogs. So there are several ways to do it. There's this way, and then they have some other options here. But the traditional way works for most things. This is another reason why this is so helpful, I think. Not only do they have this sort of Mad Libs thing going on, but they've got a word bank here. So author, in the example we have here, Toni Morrison in her essay, Disturbing Nurses and Kindness of Sharks. So Toni Morrison in the title of her piece. And this is where we need a verb. We've got an A. We need a article, book review, chapter, whatever it is, the genre, and the title. And then B, what does she do? She is, argues, asserts, well, let's see, Toni Morrison implies. What does she imply? She implies that. That's the that statement. That racism in the United States has affected the craft and process of American novelists. So that's that first part, one sentence. Toni Morrison in her article, and she's talking about how Ernest Hemingway writes about these issues. And then the next bit is how. The author's last name supports her argument by comparing, contrasting, telling, explaining, illustrating, demonstrating, defining, describing, listing, and then what is it that they do. So how does she, so this is her argument, she argues that, and then how does she do it? Morrison supports her implication that she implies. She supports her implication by describing how Ernest Hemingway writes about Black characters in his novels and short stories. Okay, so this is what he does, and this is who it is, this is what they do, this is how they do it, and this is why they do it. The author's purpose is to blank, and we've got show, point out, suggest, inform, persuade, convince, and then in order to. So what is it that they're trying to do, and to what end? So she is implying that racism in the United States has affected the craft and process of American novels. That's the who and the what. She supports her implication by describing how Ernest Hemingway writes about Black characters in his novels and short stories. That's the how. And then her purpose, if this is the why, is to make her readers aware of the cruel reality of racism underlying some of the greatest works of American literature in order to help them examine the far-reaching effects racism has had, not only on those discriminated against, but also on those who discriminate. So that's that sentence there, the why. And then finally to whom. And he's got, is it formal, informal, sarcastic, humorous? These are, of course, just some of the words. You can use any that you need. She establishes a formal and highly analytical tone with her audience of racially mixed, but probably mainly white, theoretically sophisticated readers and critical interpreters of American literature. So, in a lot of cases, these folks will be writing to other scholars. Sometimes they'll be writing to the general public. Who is Hankins writing to in that American Affairs piece?
Probably definitely students, academically aware students, educated students, college students, or other scholars, academic audience, I guess, for sure.
Maybe those in the field too.
Yeah.
Preparing to go into humanities.
So it probably, when you guys write these, another really helpful resource for figuring out, who they're writing to is to know a little more about the venue. So this American Affairs is one that, because we have so much, because the digital humanities is complicated and is pretty not conservative. This is American Affairs is like they describe it as like the New York Times book review for more conservative, intellectuals. He's writing to others like-minded, maybe politically conservative eggheads who have likely been defending humanities, and he says they've been doing it wrong. So anyway, so there are different ways that we can go about kind of figuring that out. That is less important, I think, than what it is that they're saying, unless they're talking in some kind of weird venue that makes it really extra important that moms multitask, don't they? Hello, you getting homework done? Oh,
avoiding bedtime.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to encourage that. I love it. So cute. Okay, so the précis, you write that up. It's formulaic, and then you present it to us. And what we're going to do is we're going to alternate. I've put you in groups. Group 1, you guys, and then group 2, you guys. All that means is that group 1, you're coming up. Oh, I need to create an area for that. You're going to go to the rhetorical précis thing before we are scheduled to meet next week. Go to content, rhetorical précis, and no, you just post it below. So yeah, so you get what you need here, but just post your rhetorical précis here so that we all have it. Then how I'm going to grade it is I'm just going to look to see, you know, do you have those various parts? And then part of it is the presentation of it that you give to us, or one that you have imitated through text or video. So if you do text, the reason why I say 400 words is because probably the presentation will be about 5 minutes, 250 words as a page, double spaced, and that usually takes about a couple minutes to read. So you know, these are like equivalent terms. So you'll just post it there. So group 1, you guys are Greg, Stephanie, John, Michael, Peter, I think that's Peter, Joyce, Josh, Lonnie, Daniel, and Katie. So you guys will be presenting to us a chapter from either the section Histories and Futures of the Digital Humanities or Digital Humanities and its Methods. So you choose an article from that. So Histories and Futures of the Digital Humanities, it's got Stephen Jones is the guy who wrote our Emergence in the Digital Humanities, the What's Next, Making a Case for Black Digital Humanities, and so on. Or Digital Humanities and its Methods, Tools, Digital Pedagogy, The Science Wars, Episode 4, Where's Methodology, and so forth. So pick something that's interesting. Somebody pointed out that without a sign-up sheet, we're definitely probably going to have overlap. And that's okay. I mean, I thought we should do a sign-up sheet, but I've got sign-up sheets everywhere, and I thought, well, let's just simplify, and it's a risk we can take. We can deal with redundancy. So read that and post that, and then group 2, it's your turn the following week, and then group 4, we go back and forth. So you're not having to do this every week, and we have fewer presentations each week. Okay. 2 more things. Your final project, your midterm project is a draft of your final project. And it's going to be, we'll do a peer review of it, and you'll do a conference with me about it. So here's what your final project is. We're going to be looking at digital humanities projects. We're going to be reading about digital humanities scholarship. We're going to be theorizing. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be pushing with and against our stuff that we're talking about here together. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a multimedia exhibition with at least one other classmate, up to 3 people in per group. You can, and even do it by yourself if you have trouble because of logistics, collaborating with other people. You're going to carefully curate a set of resources that'll be some of those that we're going to work on together. Some of those you guys are going to be bringing in with your rhetorical précis or your presentation of your digital humanities projects that you're delivering to us. And some of it is just going to be things that you guys have found on your own. It can be a website, a Prezi, something that somebody could stumble upon and learn something about the digital humanities through it. It's going to showcase, it's going to do it on a single theme, like, for example, Victorian literature. It could be a single author if there's enough on that, or a type. You were just talking about augmented reality. One of the things that mapping a lot of Islamophobia thing is a visualization tool. It allows us to see something. It's usually a big bunch of data that it's helping us see in new ways. So you can choose to do it on a theme, on an author, on maybe there's a classroom-based thing that you're really interested in getting to know more about. Be careful about the pedagogical projects that are not clearly humanities. I want you guys to get pedagogical projects for sure, but we got to make sure that it's the humanities in addition to the digital. Sometimes it's just digital. So we're going to talk about that quite a bit, but pick a topic, and we'll be picking that over the next little bit so that you can begin working on this. And then you're going to put together a collective introduction, about 1,200 words, where you're going to theorize and contextualize your project within the conversation using some of our course texts and other source material. And I'm going to help you guys with that. That's going to come out of your blog posts. It's going to come out of the conversations that we have here. It's going to be like, you've got you've got maybe a project on Victorian literature, and you're going to be focusing specifically on Dickens, for example, and in your, as you theorize, you're going to be talking about other projects that maybe are not about Dickens, or maybe are not about you know, Oliver Twist, but are about, but use some of the same mechanisms to visualize the data. Maybe they've taken all the words from everything that Dickens has ever written and then did some sort of corpus linguistics thing. And so basically you're going to like contextualize it within the conversation we're having and theorize it through Jones and how he's talking about the digital humanities, and through the debates of the digital humanities and whatever it is that is informing your conversation. The audience is less us, it's the world. You know, in as much as we get to talk to the whole world. Then you're going to, so your introduction, and then you're going to have a curated selection of digital humanities projects. So if you have, I won't go with augmented reality yet because we haven't played with that yet. But if we have, again, a Dickens project, and we have like maybe 4 different digital humanities projects that we're looking at that do different things, then we'll have a link to that, we'll describe it, and then you'll have an annotation underneath it so that they can get to those. You've talked about them in the introduction, you've dealt with them, we can see them in more detail later. And then an annotated list with complete links of resources most directly relevant to those. And some of them are going to be scholarly articles about the various digital humanities projects that you're showing. Some of them are going to be about related things. We'll talk about that throughout, but really anything that you're going to be doing in the class, we're crowdsourcing together, and we're going to be working on those together. And then finally, a bio for each of you guys. So, and maybe a link to your blog. So this is the culminating project that we're working towards all semester. I want you to, we're going to go broad, and then we're going to come back in. I want you guys to leave with an understanding of what the digital humanities can do for you, because I don't care about digital humanities unless it does something for me. So maybe you're like I am. Maybe you're more generous than I am. So the final thing is, any questions? Okay, the final thing is Zotero. Anybody know about Zotero? No fans of it? Oh, it's great. You guys, graduate students, love this. Okay, we have a Zotero group library. Some of you guys have already posted to it. Everybody should have a folder, and I'm asking you guys to post 20 entries. Some of those will be things you find on your own. Some of those things will be things that you present to us through rhetorical praeses, so do double duty. So maybe a blog post that you create. I'm trying to remember who. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's one. So Graphing Thoughts, that's a great title. This is Stephanie's entry for her blog. But what it lets you do is I've invited all of you guys. Everybody receive an invitation? If you didn't, email me, and because once you're invited, you can add whatever you want to it. Interesting. I thought you were in the room. Yeah. Okay. Digitally human. Gosh, these are good. So what I want you guys to create is your rhetorical praeses is a good thing for this. So this is a entry for and all of the item type, scholarly article, journal article, blog post, because I think a lot of digital humanities projects will be a web page. The title of it, Mapping Islamophobia, visualizing Islamophobia and its effects. The author, there are multiple authors, so I just put one to make it easy. This project uses maps. I didn't write this, I just took it from the website. You can totally do that where it exists. This project uses maps available via the menu at the top of the page to provide data in a way that empowers viewers to develop their own understanding of Islamophobia in the United States, how American Muslims seek to counter Islamophobia, and how anti-Muslim hate affects the nature of those efforts. Our maps present carefully curated information about the nature of events and incidents that Islamophobia inspires, when and where they have taken place across the United States, the people who have fallen victim to them, and the ways in which American Muslims have responded to anti-Muslim hate. It's a digital humanities project. Short title mapping, it's a good idea. What is this? What is the kind of thing that we're talking about here? We need a URL to it. We need to know what language it is. Give it a tag. More than one tag would be a good idea, but I care less about that than I do about getting this. Again, this is crowdsourcing. All of you guys bringing your resources together into one space and helping us understand why it might be useful.
This video, I'm going to talk about how you can use Zotero groups to share resources, technology in the class. We'll look up things. We'll back up your tools to use in Zotero. So open Zotero. Let me open up Zotero here. And I'm
so it's something that
using
you
the
can
standalone
download.
version.
You can put
I'm going to look for my groups that I've created.
Take
And it's
whatever
under
you're
here,
looking
group
at and
libraries.
make a citation out of it.
And so here's our library for summer. Depending upon the course, your library might be. So this is the folder or the library to share your resources with. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a resource really quickly. And I want to show you something so you'll understand how you can use Albertson's library in search for digital inequality. Interesting. Well, obviously Albertson's library access, free access to the article. So, and then I do it right away in the Albertson's library. Here I can just click the full text and look at that. So I'll go ahead and add this to my Zotero library.
Woo! 3 minutes in. You see what she just did?
I'll go ahead and open my Zotero library. Now you can see, look at this. It did the all caps, which is not a good thing. If you right click, it can transform the text to sentence case. And it's very, very simple. So you have that. But remember, Zotero doesn't do everything correctly. I have to make an uppercase letter after the colon and make sure there are no proper nouns in there. Okay, that looks good. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and share this now with our.
Okay, so so this plus right here, if you're not doing it automatically, go to Zotero. You don't need to download it. You can do it on the web, but do download it if you want to use it, because that'll allow you then to do this automatic thing. It will make an automatic citation out of almost anything. It's going to make a mess out of it, but it's going to create it. And then, but if you want to do it manually, you'll punch the plus button and it'll open up a series of fields. You know, what type is it? Your URL, and it'll ask you for a lot more information than you actually will have or need. So I want you guys to fill out citations for that, so that see how much material she has. All of that's been crowdsourced. I got it created into folders so that I can easily grade it, because you guys are going to be creating, I hope more than, but 20 items is what I want you guys to crowdsource. And those should include at least 5 digital humanities projects. And remember, you're going to, these might be all the ones that you include in your final project. They probably won't be, because you're going to be looking at some things that you might want to ditch. They probably will include the one that you present to the class. Scholarly articles that would be outside of the class stuff, and then whatever else you want to do. There's a lot of blogs out there. Periodicals in higher education, like Inside Higher Ed and Chronicle of Higher Ed, or those are good places to find things that are going on in the digital humanities, including like tensions in institutions about that. So, so start that as soon as you can. Do it bi-weekly. It's going to be, I want you guys to have it ready by about the time your midterm project is due. So the Zotero group library is designed to serve your final project. Your participation is designed to serve your final project. Your rhetorical praises are designed to serve your final project, and so forth. So it's all working towards a thing. We're gonna look out. We're gonna come in. We're gonna make each other look at things that we might not necessarily see if we were to if I were the only one curating the stuff that's here. And then that's that. So. Yeah. In the class, got questions, ask them here, or ask me via email, or ask me in class. Recorded class meetings, again, post to those. here, give us your link, and you're going to create, as these other did, a Zotero, a group entry for your blog. And then what I'm going to do so that you guys can easily respond to one another's blogs is I'll create a list of those blogs. So as soon as you guys have all posted your URLs for your blogs, I'll put those up here. So so there's that. And then rhetorical précis, they'll all go in the same pile. And as you guys are looking for sources, look at what other people have written and see how useful that might be. Your presentations, the presentation schedules, we're working. That's here, and we are working on that. And then discussions. Before I leave this, I'm going to go back to the agenda. Okay, so next week is we're not going to be here. I hate to break the flow, but we've got my giant Catholic families coming from all across the country. There are going to be millions of us in McKinney and that area, so everybody drive around it. There'll be a lot of loud people there. We have a good time. So no face-to-face meeting, but we'll use that time to set up things, set up your blog, set up your Zotero group library, search for a digital humanities project to feature in your presentation. And all of that's due before our week 3 meeting. And that's the only week we're going to have all these. We've got several different online discussion things. I want you to post your Zotero group, find a digital humanities project. And it's going to take a couple of boxes, your Zotero group library and your presentation. Find it, post it to the Zotero group library. Here's some students, just search digital humanities projects, or like if, what's the name of your author, Brian, that you did? The Russian sci-fi?
Glukowski?
Yeah, I bet there's not a digital humanities project on there, but there may be on Russian literature or sci-fi more generally. So you can just do a search for digital humanities and the thing that you dig, or maybe the thing that you're teaching, or what's one of your favorite things that you read in class every year with your students, Joyce? Richard. Oh, that's okay. Okay. What about you guys? What do you guys, Greg? What do you read with your students that's a favorite of yours? Are you teaching? Are you're superintending?
Oh, ma'am, I'm the superintendent. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I've taught.
Okay. Do you remember how long has it been?
Oh, probably about maybe 13 years.
Because principal, vice principal, you all of that? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
You miss it?
Yeah, I do. I miss it. I miss being in the classroom.
But yeah, you're driving everybody towards the future now.
That's it.
Okay, that's right. But there's some other places with resources that they've collected a bunch of we'll talk about the Vectors Institute, which is very, very cool. But anyway, I pulled together some lists you can look at, or just Google. Create and publish your blog and respond to a classmate's blog. Then I've got a discussion area set aside for you guys to ask questions that come up about, review the course website, anything on what questions do you have, and answer one another. And then this is the thing about Neuromancer that I'm asking you guys to do. So, and sign up for your presentation. So this is just the stuff to do. The discussions are week 2 right there. So the digital discussion, and then course requirements, that is not a required thing to do. But you should be able to find everything you need to do here. So anything like if we have a stray discussion, I'll stick it there. Otherwise, it's going to go in the recorded class meetings section. So questions? I can't hear you yet. Okay, I'm not hearing you.
I didn't push my unmute. If we aren't able to make the live recording thing, and we are sending in questions or comments beforehand, is there a certain time those need to be to you by?
Yeah, I should have made that point. I will check. I will come up with a better time, but I was just saying before class, but I do need time to look at them. Let's say by noon, the day of class. That would give me some time. And then Katie, if I haven't posted it anywhere, can you remind me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Other questions? You had questions, Rex? Hello, dog. Hey, Abigail.
Hi.
Any questions? No?
No, I'm good.
Good. You lit up, so I thought maybe it's kind of like, what's that? Yes, it's that game show. That's what I'm trying to think of. No whammies, no whammies. That's the one I'm thinking of. What's that one? Big bucks, no whammies. Yeah.
Is it Test Your Luck or something like that?
That's it. Yes. Oh, that was gonna make me nuts. That's really important. Woo, that was a close one. Okay, so let's look at this. It's mapping Islamophobia, and I can do some more housekeeping stuff if you guys like, or can just look at this. Play with this again. Let's get back into it. All right, so mapping Islamophobia. So this is an example of a data visualization tool. They've taken news reports, government studies, and a variety of other kinds of genres that are covering two things, that are covering incidents of Islamophobia, violence, hate speech, vandalism, intimidation, and also activist work designed to counter those that Islamophobia. So they've got like numbers, tons of numbers, so many numbers, and it's very common in the digital humanities, just as it is in the sciences. In the sciences, if you want to get a grant from the National Science Foundation, it is you do not get that money unless you give them a plan for how you're going to share your data. So we don't necessarily do that in humanities, but it's now a job for if you can't get an NEH grant unless you in the digital humanities unless you share your data. So they collected all this data to make this digital humanities project, and you can download it. Each item. I'm not going to probably crash the computer, but each item includes a date, geolocation, its date, an event short name, an event description, a source, and is coded in two ways: event class, crimes against people, crimes against property, public speech, public campaigns, targeting community bias-related incidents, targeting individual or specific group, and legislation and gender of victims. We decided to code incidents of events affecting American Muslim communities in general, as opposed to an individual or group, individuals, male and female. And then the countering Islamophobia data set is a date, geolocation, short name, event description, and so forth. Political outreach, political community activity, community outreach, mosque open house, interfaith efforts, and so forth. Okay, this is what makes it so cool. There's a lot of things that are cool about this. It's also very, very, very disturbing. So what we have here is a scrub at the bottom. Do you see we're starting in 2008, 2009. Those are incidents of Islamophobic activity, anti-Muslim activity. October 2010, you can see on the bottom there's a bar graph, so we can see when we're going to get spikes. Same speed, the hate to spill in over, but about the same pattern. We got a bloop up in August 2012. In July 2013, another kind of bump, and we're beginning to get more and more surges. And then May 2015, something happens, and then check this out, right at the end of May, boom, April, and then we have another spike, May 2017. And then this goes all the way, the data they've collected is all the way through January. What do you think? It just gives me chills. The other thing, so we can scrub this and I can pick, I want to see what it looks like there. But they also have a map where it's interactive. So each orange dot on the map represents an incident or event that reflects Islamophobic attitudes ranging from instances of harassment and vandalism to national political speech and elections. Click on individual dots to reveal a short description of the event and a source for additional reading. It may be easier to do so if you zoom in. Okay, so let's zoom. Where do we want to go, folks? What do we want to look at? Is there something in Texas we want to look at? Let me see. Huh?
Go to Dallas.
You want to go to Dallas? Okay. Where is that? Okay, let's see what's here. MacArthur School. Okay, a student at MacArthur High School is arrested for creating a hoax bomb after shooting his teachers at showing his teachers a homemade clock. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Dallas News. Okay. Yeah. And it's interesting too. Why is this part of this anti-Islamic data set? Do you remember that incident? Who remembers it? Tell us about it. What is it, Greg? Tell us about that incident.
I just, if I vaguely remember, I'll probably get the details. A young boy was showing a clock that he had made and had the right wires. It looked like a bomb. The school officials kind of overreacted, committed him and disciplined him for that. And I think it ended up in court or something, I think. But that's,
yeah, I'm not sure.
The gist of it.
It was, this incredibly smart, articulate kid made a clock, and he was Muslim American. So the argument was, is it a bomb because a Muslim American is holding it?
Yeah.
It's a clock. So it's not just like this is an anti-Muslim. It's not violent, but it is sort of violent. It definitely is a moment in news that was framed that way. So let's see what else we have. A political speech. Mayor of Irving posts a long Facebook message responding to a controversy centered around a Muslim mediation panel comprised of arbitrators, you know what I'm talking about, settling civil disputes using Sharia law and non-binding decisions. I can't read that. This anti-Sharia asserts that the existence of this panel violates public policy, statutory or federal laws, and that she and her staff are working to fight the presence of Islam. I can't read it, but anyway, so we have all of these are, and we can also sort it like by win and more moments and fewer moments. Then they also do it by type, things that are legislation, things that are public campaigns, public speeches, crimes against property, bias-related incidents, crimes against people. And this is also, see, each colored dot represents an incident that reflects Islamophobic attitudes ranging from instances of harassment and vandalism to national policy and so forth. And then we can click the dot for additional source material, same thing. And the gender of them, and then countering Islamophobia. We can scrub that map too. Let's see. Oh, we can. We'll try. Why aren't you working?
There are two things that come to my mind when I look at this map and that line thing at the bottom. One is it seemed like the left side of the map had less going on than the right, so it makes me wonder if this is just based on population that the left side would have less, or if there's a smaller Muslim population on the left. So I would be curious as to, you know, why one side's heavier than the other. And also I'm wondering maybe if there was something going on in the world or in the United States or somewhere when we do see those spikes, you know, because when you saw the spikes, it wasn't happening just in one location of the map. It was happening in various parts. So I'm just wondering, you know, why of May of whatever year, you know, was there such a spike? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Somebody was going to say something. I think that's, I mean, this is in part an activist project, and I think there are some things happening in the world that that they're definitely responding to, and we can see that in terms of when it is aligning. But the data is really important because this is saying something particular about anti-Muslim activity. What is it saying? What's it saying, Abigail, about anti-Muslim activity?
It's progressing quite quickly, and I mean, I agree with the previous statement. It looks very heavy on the east instead of the west, which is actually a surprise to me.
It is to me too, and Lonnie asked.
Yeah.
Because of the, and it's a great question. I mean, there are probably larger Muslim populations elsewhere, but I hadn't thought to ask that, and I don't think that was part of what an argument that they were trying to make. They were trying to make an argument about the spike, but not about the placement. And a good question. Are we talking about urban areas or?
It seems like that's an important point. They're using the map
Mm-hmm.
as the visuals to.
Yeah, good point. So the data is available. Another digital humanities project could appear that, you know, and also, you know, when you guys do your digital humanities presentations, that's part of it, I think. You know, the intention seems to be X, a potential unforeseen kind of effect of this project is Y. You know, I see, of course, I do see the incredible fast growing, but the question that they didn't begin to answer really is why this concentration, and so what might another project look like that didn't do that, or what could this project be retooled to do, and why is it as a map is what so you guys were saying, you know, if it's going to be, if that's not going to be part of the argument, or is it part of the argument and I'm just not seeing it on first glance. So what is this doing that the news articles were not doing by themselves?
It's definitely giving you an image of that it's not just like centralized in one place. I think sometimes when we hear stories about some specific happening, we assume it's only happening in that area. And this gives a better view of like, no, this is, you know, all over the US, and it's not just central, you know, centered around one space. It's popping up all over and quickly.
Yeah.
So there's also controversy. Anybody listen to On the Media? It's an NPR program that I just love, and it basically takes the media to task all the time. But there's this, oh wait, no, that's not On the Media. What is that one? I think it's called Reveal. But it was a story about an environmental study that has been, all of the research tells us that it's been silenced and forced to take certain forms, and then eventually it didn't because there was enough pushback. But one of the tools that, even though the white paper was put out there, was this visualization tool that they had designed that took all of the data that she had created to show us what the various terrain was going to look like if we went, you know, if we continued on our path in 2030 and 2050 and so forth. And you could see what the water's going to cover, and basically, you know, if we don't change our ways, if we change them a little, if we change them a lot, that kind of stuff. So that she created a website for that, and that website was going to be launched with the paper, but it is too persuasive, I guess, or it's too controversial, or it's too complicated. She brought the reporters over to her campus, and one of the people with whom she worked was running it off of her computer. So they all kind of crowded into her little cube and looked at it, at work there. But the data in the report was doing something very different from what it's saying the same thing, but it was doing something very different from what it was another visualization tool was doing that enabled us to, okay, we see all the data, we know, such and such is going to be underwater and such else is as well, but actually seeing exactly what it's going to cover as is by itself, collectively, it comes at you, very, very persuasive, kind of overwhelming.
This is a trend too. This particularly Islam. There may be a news story. A mosque was vandalized in Jersey City, but it's in isolation. Mm-hmm. And this is putting them all together. Since 08 when it started, and it's showing an upward trend through the years. It's not forgetting what happened in 08, where the news story is not gonna. It may mention like a similar thing happened in a different city 5 years ago, but they're isolated. This happened. Mm-hmm. They're not tracing it over a period of time.
It's funny that you mentioned the news, because I've been sitting here looking for this and trying to find what is the criteria for it to be included on.
Good question.
Does it have to be in the news? Is it because the news is covering it now and it's been happening, we just haven't been paying attention?
Or is it a subtle argument that because it's in the news, it causes more? I don't know. Good question.
It's like a research agenda or a method, or like why this everything has to be measured.
Bless you, Abigail.
Oh, thank you.
Is that because?
What's that?
Is that because digital humanities is new? That this would, that there would be no rigor to it? Like
it's rigorous, hella rigorous. But every project, every research project has blind spots, and this is making a particular argument. And it's not cherry picking data. It's if it were. The reason why digital humanities often does, mine did have a ton of stuff about methodology and all that scholarly mumbo jumbo. There is a whole subset of digital humanities that is public humanities, civic humanities. So the audience for that can include other scholars, but it is absolutely public facing. I want you guys to see this. And they, a lot of times, decisions are made in public facing things, just like in journalism, to kind of tuck away the messy bits because it's hard to understand it if they don't do that. So we can fault them for that. I would say that it's digital humanities is there's like digital humanities light and that are not rigorous, that are not held to standards. And also another question is, it does complicate, and we'll talk a lot more about this peer review. This is out there, not under a particular publication, any journal, a particular university press. It could have been maybe it received an NEH grant at some point, which gives it some credence. Maybe it's just some knuckleheads putting it together, but I don't think so, because you can look at who did it and find out about their credentials. They're all at Grinnell, which could mean something, it could not mean something, I don't know. But anyway, so everything makes an argument. Some things make it in different ways, but every project, also like anything that we read, if any piece of literature, for example, is now open for constant re-examination. So questions like that you're asking open up new, I think, things that, what if we were to, since she's given us the data set, what if we were to only look at those incidents that are, I don't know, only those incidents that appear at public schools, for example. Only those incidents that involve mosques. Only those incidences that are maybe not directly violent, but show an anti-Muslim bias like the clock bomb thing. So that's a visualization tool. The other how to rob a bank thing, that's not really a genre of digital humanities. It's just something I wanted to show you because I thought it was fun. It won the Digital Humanities Awards prize for fun. I don't know if they just made that category up, but there are some things that are out
That
there.
itself is interesting that we don't find that amusing.
I know, right?
Someone trying to rob a bank and take a hostage. And we're all like, oh, that is so funny.
No one's wrong with that. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it also says, how much I love Breaking Bad and those kinds of things.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, to get into, and I will leave room for more conversation, definitely about Hankins as well. But I think I'm going to kind of talk at you for a few minutes to talk again about the humanities being in crisis. And the digital humanities not being like the savior of it, but it being like one answer to it. And the humanities has been on the defensive for a long time. And one argument is that the digital humanities are a really persuasive response to those forcing the humanities into this defensive posture, insisting that STEM is far superior. I mean, has anybody heard that? Does STEM matter more than English? Anybody hear that before? Or am I just the only one?
Your public school system.
Yeah.
So those tensions are not new. Science and technology have had the upper hand for a long time, and especially in the post-war era, technology became like a life or death matter. Remember, the atomic bomb just remade our relationship to our futures and one another. And I mean, how humanistic can we get, right? We got to know something about humans in those contexts. Via something as unimaginable as the atomic bomb, you'd think the world would get the need for the humanities, right? The horrors of World War II, what we learned about what humans are capable of in the concentration camps, and even like what Americans are capable of once we finally more broadly became aware of the Japanese internment camps. That seems like it's vital for us to sit down and begin to understand humanity, right? I mean, it sort of seems like a call to arms. That's not where the race to the top, banked on STEM then, but it doesn't anymore, right? It's over. We're all good. But anyway, that's where the funding has gone. So, so to counter that, here's an infographic that talks about what the humanities do, why they matter. This came out of the Alliance for the Digital Humanities, and also Hankins does not like this economic argument. The humanities are academic disciplines that seek to understand and interpret the human experience from individuals to entire cultures, engaging in the discovery, preservation, and communication of the past and present record to enable a deeper understanding of contemporary society. The humanities encompasses literature, classics, ancient and modern languages, history, philosophy, media studies, and the fine and performing arts, and other related subjects. It can be a challenge to show the benefits of the humanities bring. In this infographic, we're trying to bring evidence that says that the humanities matter. So what do? It's about what it is to be human, to understand others in the world through their languages, histories, and culture. They foster social justice and equality and reveal how people have tried to make moral, spiritual, intellectual sense of the world. They teach empathy. This is definitely what Hankins argues, right? He says mainly if we look at the ancient Greeks, but yeah, they teach empathy. The humanities teach us to deal critically and logically with subjective, complex, imperfect information. That's crucial, and we just saw that in the mapping Islamophobia thing. They teach us to weigh evidence skeptically and consider more than one side of every question. I love that, but also means that it's madness. But we have tons of answers and tons of questions. And the humanities build skills in writing and critical thinking. I mean, I think we all agree with that, right? They encourage us to think creatively. They teach us to reason about being human and to ask questions about our world. They develop informed and critical citizens. Without humanities, democracy will not flourish. I'm going to get that tattooed on my forehead, and then when I get sent through a transporter, I guess I'll lose it. The value of the humanities is more often in the questions posed, I love that, than the answers found. Humanistic study is not formulaic. Doesn't necessarily align well with STEM. One only needs to turn on the news to see that we need the skills and knowledge of the humanities in understanding other cultures, being able to communicate effectively, realizing the ramifications of history, and analyzing human behavior. The humanities are more important to global society than ever before. So critics say the humanities lack cultural or economic relevance. They say the humanities have no purpose. They say academic work is inaccessible to the public. They say that humanities students are not immediately employable. They say in times of economic recession that resources should not be spent on the study of the human condition. They say the humanities are in crisis. But the evidence shows, and there are that 652 U.S.-born CEOs and heads of product engineering showed almost 60% had degrees in humanities. And some more about CEOs and of the members of, in 2011, of the 650 UK members of Parliament, 5% had a vocational degree, 10% had a scientific qualification, and 65% had arts, humanities, and social sciences degrees. So people who are humanities trained, and this is for, I mean, the audience is not us, make money. So it's a profitable thing to study the humanities, they say. Over 2/3 of the humanities and social science graduates enter the private sector. So, you know, they're part of the economy. They're the good guys. They're not, you know, there's these left-wing radicals on the periphery just yelling at people and tearing and gnashing their teeth and so forth. They represent some of the fastest growing entrepreneurs. So anyway, on average, humanities graduates have a comparable employment rate. So yes, you can get a job if you have 94% of Canadians have a job. 94% of history graduates have a job. 96% of graduates in theology and religious studies have a job. And then more in Canada as well. Those who were employed in Canada were 95% engineering graduates, 94% health workers, 94% graduates of fine and arts, 90% of the humanities and social sciences and so forth. I don't think those stats are very persuasive. Despite these benefits in the US, this is so painful, but just less than 1% of federal research money went to the humanities. And then in Europe, it wasn't much better. But culture is important. 76% of people think that their lives are richer for having the opportunity to visit their historic environment. 88% of people believe that it's important in creating and boosting the economy. We need to understand the role culture plays in people's lives. This is the role of the humanities. Humanities are about discovery. Discover the humanities. For humanities and so forth. Yes, it's a bunch of digital humanities people. So that's one argument. It's like the humanities make a difference in everybody's lives. We need to understand ourselves so that we can understand one another, so that we can be more productive citizens. So that's one argument. Another argument is the practical economic skills-based value of the economy of the humanistic study. Another argument is the one that I think that that I wanted you guys to read, because I think Hankins makes it so well, is that there are like moral ends to humanistic study. That historically the argument has always been we got to read the great works of the ancient Greece because they make us better humans. We have to read humanities matter because humans matter. To study the humanities is to understand morality. We cannot be good people unless we look at great works. And this argument usually aligns with reading specific texts, big book projects, programs. But I mean, I don't disagree that it definitely has a moral ends. I mean, what was that Mapping Islamophobia project about except about morality? Then the third argument, and this is from On How Not to Defend the Humanities. The humanities have always been scientific in character, made important contributions to science rightly understood, have inspired innovation in the natural sciences, and are today engaged more than ever in advanced scientific computer-aided research. That's the digital humanities, of course. And I think Hanks does a really good job with summarizing that argument, even though he doesn't agree with it. He hates all those arguments, he just likes the moralistic end of humanistic study. But let's look at, I'm going to end by talking about C.P. Snow's The Two Cultures in the Scientific Revolution. I do have that link too here. and then hopefully we'll have some time to talk about. Okay, so C.P. Snow was a scientist, but he's also a writer, and he was troubled by the distance between those two identities. He's all on board with that third argument that the science is in the service of the humanities, the humanities in the service of the sciences. He is not really that, he doesn't think much of the humanities, but he thinks we should talk. He says, this is his introduction. He's given his talk several times. This is published eventually by the Cambridge University Press. He says, there have been plenty of days when I've spent the working hours with scientists and then gone off at night with some literary colleagues. I mean that literally. I've had, of course, intimate friends among both scientists and writers. It was through living among these groups and much more, I think, through moving regularly from one to the other and back again, that I got occupied with the problem of what, long before I put it on paper, I christened to myself as the two cultures. Where constantly I felt I was moving among two groups, comparable intelligence, and this is the mid-50s, so he says identical in race, not that different in social origin, earning about the same incomes, who had almost entirely ceased to communicate at all, who had an intellectual, moral, and psychological climate had so little in common that instead of going from Burlington House or South Kensington to Chelsea, we might have crossed an ocean. So he says that they're like, it's like being split into two polar groups. He says that there are the literary intellectuals on one pole, and then at the other there's the sciences. He says that there's this like big gulf of mutual incomprehension, and sometimes hostility and dislike, but definitely not lack of understanding, and like no desire to understand one another. Is that still true, do you guys think? Do we talk to the sciences? Do the scientists get us? Wait, what do you think? Katie, you're smirking.
Only because this conversation came up in a meeting today.
Okay, tell us.
There was a big group of teachers that had gone to the meeting, and the room was split with like two groups of chairs with an aisle between them, and all of the history and English people sat on one side, and all of the math and science sat on the other. And we just laughed at the fact that we just like automatically did that. There was no like discussion of where you should sit. We just automatically split ourselves into those two groups.
Love that. Yep. That seemed familiar. I think so. They have, he says, a curious and distorted image of each other, so we don't want to sit next to each other. He says, okay, here's the point. He says, there seems then to be no place where the cultures meet. I'm not going to waste time saying that is a pity is much worse than that. Soon I shall come to some practical consequences, but at the heart of thought and creation, we are letting some of the best chances go by default. The clashing point of two subjects, and this is the place of digital humanities. He's not saying that's 1959, but it is. The clashing point of the two subjects, two disciplines, two cultures, of two galaxies, so far as that goes, ought to produce creative chances. In the history of mental activity, that has been where some of the breakthroughs came. The chances are there now, but they are there as they were in a vacuum because those two cultures can't talk to each other. He says that once anything like a cultural divide is established, all the social forces operate to make it not less rigid, but more so. That's true of any social forces. Okay, this is the post-war era, remember the mid-50s, and he says, in fact, the separation between the scientists and the non-scientists is much less bridgeable among the young than it was even 30 years ago. So do some math, I think we're talking about the 20s. 30 years ago, the cultures had ceased to speak to each other, but at least they managed to kind of frozen smile across the gulf. Now the politeness is gone, and they just make faces across the aisle between the desks. It's not only that the young scientists now feel they're part of a culture on the rise, while the other is in retreat, and he says some others talking some more smack. The reasons for the existence of the two cultures are many, deep, and complex, some rooted in social histories, some in personal histories, and some in the inner dynamic of the different kinds of mental activities themselves. And then he spends a bunch of time, and this is, I think, where we really need to hone in. He spends a lot of time talking about the humanities and sciences in terms of the Industrial Revolution. He's describing, the Industrial Revolution. He means what we mean, the gradual use of machines technology, the employment of men and women in factories, the change in this country from a population mainly of agricultural laborers to a population mainly engaged in making things in factories and distributing them when they were made. So people using machines, machines using people, people being machines, to be a little Marxist about things. He says that this transformation, that change, that industrial revolution, that change, all changes are the kind of bread and butter of the humanities, that we studied human conditions, humans' relationships to one another, our own place within the world. And so when should we know more about, we should definitely know about those changes. We should be paying attention. We should be looking around. Like a time of crisis, a time of major change that was happening in the Industrial Revolution. It was happening in the mid-50s, and you know, after the atomic bomb and after all of the space race was going on and so forth. And I guess it's not happening anymore. Yeah, we're all good. Nothing's changing. So this is like decades and decades and decades before the digital revolution. So he says that basically it's all happening. We know almost none of it, nothing about it. He says that at that time we'd missed the Industrial Revolution entirely. Then it was only about half a century old. He says that the first wave of the Industrial Revolution crept in without anyone noticing what was happening. It was, of course, at least it was destined to become under our own eyes in our own time by far the biggest transformation in society since the discovery of agriculture. In fact, those two revolutions, the agricultural and industrial scientific, are the only qualitative changes in social living that men have ever known. But he says traditional culture didn't notice, or when it did notice, didn't like what it saw. Almost none of the talent, almost none of the imaginative energy went back into the revolution which was producing the wealth. Certainly it went into the technology, certainly went into new ways of training people to work the machines, but humanities was dropped. The traditional culture became more abstracted from it and became more wealthy, trained its young men for administration, so we got like more and more skill-based, and then humanities moved further and further away from any sort of work. I mean, it's now we're, the other side of it he's not talking about is where more people than ever are going to school. So, you know, we're actually training people to do work rather than, you know, sit around and drink tea and read stuff. But then, you know, that's complex because humanities matter like in a realistic way as we were talking about the economic impact. So he says during the Industrial Revolution 2 centuries ago, we, the humanists, were not paying attention. Those two cultures were divided. And writing then in that atomic age, he cautioned us, humanists and scientists, not to miss that time. And a lot did. But we got a lot more to do. Let's look at the 50s just one more time. So, you know, the digital revolution way off too, way long away. But the birth of digital humanities is like, it's happening before this guy even wrote this, and it's happening as early as 1949. This article, this is the first digital humanities lab. There they are setting it up. There they are working. I love this wired machines, little calculators. I think that's the best picture. Yeah, it is. Okay, let me tell you about it. Okay, so you're going to read about this guy several times. This Jesuit scholar, Roberto Busa, he's called kind of the founder of humanities computing. He was the author of Index for, okay, I'm going to say some linguistic stuff now, so cover your ears. He was creating what is a complete lemmatization. Is this word? No.
This is my first semester.
Okay, good. All right. Woo! Shoo! Do not tell Sal what I'm talking about in here. I'm not authorized. But he's looking, it's a lemmatization of the works of St. Thomas Aquinas. I know some of those words, St. Thomas Aquinas, I got that. In linguistics, from what I understand, lemmatization is the process of grouping together the inflected forms of a word so that they can be analyzed as a single item. Big data. So all the works of Thomas Aquinas sorted, and then we're trying to figure out some stuff about humans' uses of language by sorting these with these IBM machines using punch cards. Who knows about punch cards? Okay, right, what are they?
So they used to do computer programming. Meticulously, they had to, well, you see a whole bunch of, like use one of those in a stack of index cards, and that's how they ran code.
Stick it in the machine on one end, it'll come out.
Like a stamp.
Like a time card. You ever put a time card in and get a hole in it?
Can you see these?
Yeah.
Remember they had dangling chads and so forth in Florida? No.
And that told it to do things, drum lights and stuff. It's early code.
A lot like the player piano thing. When I have.
And if one of those cards in that whole stack is a hole in the wrong spot, your code won't work. So figure that out.
There she is trying to find out which one's wrong. Express key punch. 3 minutes or 6 cards or until asked to leave. I have in my possession part of my of the archival materials that I took from my grandmother when she died is this stack of punch cards for the World's Fair in San Antonio in 1964, something like that. And it was it has my uncle's name on it, who's dead now. My grandmother's dead. My grandfather's dead. All their names in their handwriting. And it was apparently a future telling machine. It was the giant computer that fills the whole room, and you just shove your card in there, and it sends out your future somehow. So they have these punch cards data. The plug-in plug board setups with their with all of their cables and these funky machines that nobody knows what to do with. They're doing this accounting and tabulating, and they're using. It sounds a lot like this mapping Islamophobia. They're using government census stuff. They're dealing with defense calculations. They're dealing with archives, certainly information processing of all kinds. Father Booth said, in How Not to Defend the Humanities, philology is something that Hanks is really all into. It's the study of natural language, and that was sort of the moment that things started to break, he says, for humanists. But philologists were still all about that, and certainly Father Busso was as well, that moral role to be played by a humanistic study. I mean, he was a Jesuit priest after all. But he was also really interested in the role to be played by the sciences in the humanities and vice versa. So he was doing this machine translation in 1954. I really love this story. IBM, so he's like a few years earlier is when he started working with IBM, and he created the Computer Applied Linguistics Lab. And at that time, IBM had a machine where they publicized a machine translation of some Russian into English. I think that's what it was. It was called the IBM 701 Defense Calculator. Yeah, used to translate into English a group of Russian sentences based on a limited set of syntax rules. And then they got this press release, and they've got somebody they called a girl who didn't understand Russian, and she was deliberately chosen so that she could take the punch card and punch the Russian sentences onto the cards using that limited syntax. And then the electronic brain, they said, dashed off its English translations on an automatic printer at the breakneck speed of 2.5 lines per second. Yeah, it does. The press release also pointed out the machine had interpreted the schedule of calculating rocket trajectories in order to address a new and strange realm. So this machine stuff is there to defend us from the onslaught of the new, of the communist threat that was going to sweep the world. They use that same machine that calculates the rocket trajectories in order to do this new and strange world that is the human use of words. So it's taking all this power to figure out how humans use words. I can't imagine that that's worth doing, but
But no, but so this is an important problem we can bring this stuff to that.
So this is an interesting thing too. I mean, this is in terms of like the science and the humanities, like separation between the two cultures that he's talking about and what we learned about from the Industrial Revolution. This is an old retrofitted to become this computers lab factory that made textiles from Industrial Revolution and to Scientific Revolution to the birth of the digital humanities and all these fun things. I want to look at what's going on with all these little cards and notes, and I don't know, maybe somebody's doing grocery lists or something like that at the same time. I don't know. But anyways, this article is about this guy who is looking at the place in where Father Bruce's lab used to be, and archival materials to sort of to what he says re-engineer, reverse engineer this computer lab, because we don't have a lot of artifacts from it. So, 10 minutes remaining. Okay. So, what has been your experience with the humanities? Do you think we're in crisis? I haven't heard from Sarah yet. Can you tell us about what you think? How are the humanities doing? And what can we do to save it? Are you experiencing this?
Yeah, I think a lot of times the emphasis is placed on STEM because that's where the jobs are. That's where demand is. And I know in some of the schools, the colleges, even local to me in South Arkansas, they are seeing numbers dwindling in their humanities program, but money and funding and enrollment is all in STEM every time you turn around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has that been your experience, Jennifer?
I would say yes. Through my students, I always begin by asking them what their major is going to be. When they're in my classes, they're at the very beginning. And I only have had a handful say that they were going into anything in the humanities at all. It's a lot of, they have, these scientific, whether they're going to be doctors or computer programmers. I think that a lot of that, of course, we all know that's going to change when they get there and they may realize that they love this more. So, yeah.
I do want us to have a chance to talk about, not just me talk at you, about this American Affairs article. Everything we read, I think, will feed into the next thing, will feed into the next thing, and so forth. But before we break for the night, anybody have questions? Okay, well, I guess you don't need me. We're not going to be in this room again, as I said, next time, but we will after that. And I hope as many of you guys will stream in as possible, because those of you guys who are here don't need to write up that thing or watch. I mean, I know that our 3 hours of watch time is going to be riveting to them, right? So hello, future. Let's all say it to them from the past. But anyway, I just love this stuff, and I hope you guys are going to dig it too. And I really wanted to be able to do this live. In as much as we sort of are, look at all this technology. Hunter said he'd really like me to do it online, and I said, it's kind of hard to make an argument to not teach the digital humanities online. but I mean, I hope you guys see. It's just. We have to see stuff together, right? We have to do this together. We have to get in there. Yeah, what's that?
That's the humanities.
That's true. That's right. Exactly. Keep the humanities alive. But anyway, so I hope you guys can join us this next time. And those of you guys, are always welcome to come here. Those of you guys listening to the recording, I hope you guys will come. Those of you guys who are here, you do not need to do anything except read for next time. And when we meet online next time, there are a couple of little discussions, as I said, but mostly it's setting up your blogs, getting your Zotero group library started, fiddling with that, probably running into technical problems, and definitely letting me know. These deadlines are soft when it comes to technology, which I know is definitely going to at some point screw up.
So do your best to get everything set up, and then still reach out to me. I'm going to be here until my dad flies in on Thursday. So, and I'm available via email, and that's it. Thank you guys so much.